Welcome to the Mediator with me, your host Brian West. Ladies and gents, where is my supreme duty every week, every Sunday? My 9 to 5 is to give you the top 8 headlines developing news stories, going through over 200 stories. 250 stories a week, exhausting, trying to find out which stories will benefit you and the Mediator. Like I said, during the show, if you want to contribute any way, all you have to do is visit the website at www.method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. Still a lot going on in the news, still just so much going on in the world. The premise of the basis of today's show is to try to get, I guess, the top 8. What I get out of them is mainly the fact is, what if you were somehow put in a position where you were once in the food chain, and you were a consumer, and you were eating, and you were living, and then all of a sudden somebody more powerful than you, somebody more stronger, somebody with a little bit more leg in the game came along and made you an offer that you couldn't refuse, and you were placed in a position where they said, you can do this for me, and I'll protect your family, I'll protect your life, I'll protect your legacy. And some people are put in that position right now where they have nothing left. They have nothing left, and they have to take the offer. Some people talk about selling things. They have to sell things. And they've been left. So that's what that's what I got out of the top 8 this week. And it's a very this show is probably in this particular time frame. Let's hope it is beneficial to you, to get you to understand there's 3 worlds colliding right now. There's the wealthy, there's the poor, and there's the middle class. And the poor, you can't. The sad part is that some of these poor people and some of these middle class people have a lot to offer, and they're not. They probably will never be paid what they're worth. So if you get anything out of today's show, that's what you're. Let me read the disclaimer very quick. These top 8 stories are only documented for records and to highlight topics for those in the business of talk radio, talk media, and those who just want to stay informed. It's time to get to the top 8. Like I said, if you want to contribute, or if you want to see the stories that almost made it into the media, or if you want to do your own research on the story, you go to our website, check out our Twitter feed. That's at www.method8inc.com. You can also contribute by buying something, clicking something, watching something, or just read something. Or you can just stop by the office. I'm at 5648 Market Street, providing services for the community. A lot, probably anything that you do in your everyday life, I'm probably in there pulling off. I'm at 5648 Market Street from 10 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, offering services to the community. It's been a heck of a ride, but I'm still trying my best. Let's get to the top 8. Story number 1: could nature be on course of change? Meaning, could nature be on the course of possibly eviction? There, you'll probably see story number 1 crept in. There's a lot of details that are centering analysts that are analyzing the climate. They're analyzing pollution. They're analyzing things that are happening inside of our atmosphere. You have to think of the scientists. There's always been some type of study of climate. People have probably started keeping records at a certain amount of time, but this is becoming a big issue because there's a story that I was drawn to. They were talking to an African junglist, and he was basically talking about how the animals are changing. They're changing their behavior. And then there's some talk about human behavior as well that drew my attention to this story and how it got into the top 8. And they're talking about how the climate of the water is starting to kill some of the dolphins. Like I said, folks, when you look at this big picture, you have to ask yourself, are we as human beings becoming careless? I know that we've got Earth Day coming and we've got holidays, but when you have children, you have abundance of things. What this guy was talking about when he was explaining it to the reporters, he was basically saying that this has become a problem, that humans are actually causing all of this disruption in the global atmosphere, as they're causing disruption in the food chain. But then again, I did my own research and I digged up some old books, and these stories that surface this I was it was a book I found an old book. It was talking about stories that were relating to this topic. This book had to be written probably before I was even born, years, and they were talking about how man and coexisted with animals. So the thing we have to ask ourselves is, as we analyze the story as civilians, as military minded, or as enlisted, we don't know. You just may come across a story like this, and you may want to be enlightened to see if it's real. Is climate change real? They're talking about the animals and how they're dying, and how certain things like growing corn could be causing air pollution. They're talking about how Canada is warming at twice the global rate. And they're talking about the investment of cars and how it's hit a record, about 60% of sales in March in Norway. So you're seeing stories like this surface around climate change, and you can't help but to sit back and ask yourself: Is this the real deal? Is climate change real, or is this just a story that's being written to take one hand off the other, and somebody takes something else? So we're playing a different game in this new environment, where you have we'll get into this, about people who have they have a lot of information, they have a lot of knowledge. And then you have a section of society that may be caught in the middle, may be working for these people. And then you have a section of these people that may be poor and don't have a lot of resources, that may have this information, and some of these people may be in the middle as well. And so you're seeing this cultural mix. Now I tell you, in The Mediator, it is my duty, as usual, to try to stay in the middle, to try to see the pros and the cons, and why such stories are staying alive in the media. Always trying to inform, never sway too far to the right, never sway too far to the left, but giving you the information that you may need to think and to understand what could be going on, so you can yourself make your own judgment, your own decision. Like I said, this story is about nature. Is nature fighting back? Are humans really causing a global problem? Are we causing with car emissions? Are we becoming careless? There's tons of stories just surfacing about just what pollution can do to the human body. So we have to ask ourselves: are we causing this? Like I said, if you want to contribute anyway, that was story number one. Could nature be on a course of change, and is it because of humans? That's story number one. You're the media with me, Brian West. If you want to contribute anyway, you just have to visit www.method8inc.com. This is The Mediator, where it is my supreme duty to give you the top 8 headlines developing news stories. Like I said, we have to act. In story number one, you can get something out of it with all of this scientific knowledge, and the fact that there's some people with some supreme intellect. They've studied the ways of life, and they've exhausted themselves in research and data, and it has people on the ropes wondering, is this real? And you fact check. You look at almanacs. You see trends. You see old stories. Even in some Bible stories, it talks about how sometimes the planet would go through changes. And we have stories where they're talking about in Africa, where they're talking about the animals are changing their behavior. They're starting to habitate in different environments or different places. The land seems to be drying up. They're pointing to forests that used to be filled with trees. So we have to: is the world just changing, or is there really something going on? Could humans possibly be causing this? So if you want to contribute anyway, you're in the media with me, Brian West, where I exhaust myself in stories constantly. I visit the moon without even getting in the spacecraft. I'm telling you, I exhaust myself in stories every week, just to give you something to think about. So if you want to contribute, if you want to be a part of it, if you want to help out, all you have to do is visit method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or just sponsor a program. Plenty to do on the website, plenty of stories that are uploaded to the YouTube feed, and plenty to get involved with. Now let's get to story number two. Story number two, folks. Do we blame the system or wealthy people? There's a if you keep this story bumped up to number two. It's a different feel because they're talking about things like getting rid of the electoral college, and there was some studies. If you go to the website, you may find some stories on there that are talking about legislation and how corporations have been determining how laws get through Congress. And there's new vibes coming up that is surfacing from the underground about getting the public back in charge, getting citizens back on the table. And they're trying to do this by eliminating some of the traditional ways that things have been done in Congress. There's plenty of pushes for this, especially from activists who have always been fighting things like gentrification, the who have been activists in the minority communities. People are trying to unite. A lot of nonprofit philanthropists. So what is happening is that some of these people have painted the wealthy as being the enemy, and they've implanted it in a lot of, I like to say, people's minds, that the wealthy is the reason why the system is the way it is, or the people who have all of the money, or who run the tables. So this will be an interesting story to see how this turns out, or just to see the conclusion as this story develops, and how there's even talks about things like used car dealers writing laws to avoid fixing deadly defects that they knew about in cars. There's even stories about how Puerto Rico has been struggling to get disaster aid amid Congress because of lack of So you're seeing these articles surface. I even came across an article. It was talking about how a lot of India's rich, they don't give away their wealth, but they were talking about, in the article, was basically focused on philanthropy, and how they're rich pretty much keep things intact. And it's pretty much the same culture wherever you go. The rich have a lot of wealth, they have a lot to provide, so they have a lot of investments entangled inside of a lot of communities and a lot of people. So it's basically, I guess what you could get out of story number two is you can get what would happen if you took all the wealth and spread it out. There's plenty of stories on this. Stories about, like, what if a farmer with 10 apples was able to give one apple to everybody. What would happen when that farmer ran out of apples, and all the other people wouldn't know what to do to plant or grow more apples? So you're starting to see stories like this surface, and what it's doing is it's stirring up the ideas of governing. It's creating new talk about governing, and new talk about what governing works, how governing affects the people. And it's talking about capitalism, and you'll hear talks like socialism. So then you have this administration basically saying things like, let's cut off $750,000 worth of food stamps. So you're getting people's attention. And this is why I started the show telling you, what if you were put in the position to where you were a position of power, and then you all of a sudden fell back down amongst the masses? So this is what you see happening in talks in circles, and this is why story number two may actually gain some steam. You have stories like Baltimore mayor taking indefinite health-related leave. They say that she's on things like some of these officials are under investigation. They're starting to, so people are, and then you get the fact that politicians are starting to get emotional, telling people how hard their job is and how people need to be more well studied. They're talking about the quality of the citizen, the quality of the bills that they've passed, and how they've tried to get things done. And you see, and you even see these stories trickling into the justice system. There was a story that surfaced about Alabama prisoners who were exposed to horrific horrifying violence, rape, murders, and on a regular basis. So you're starting to see story number 2. Who do we blame for this system? That some people say the system isn't fair. Some people are fighting the system. And then you see mainly people who have been affected by the system having nothing good to say. And then there are some people who just say the system is fine. You can look at how the immigration policies are played out. Some people are concerned because of the fact that you have U.S. bridges that are deteriorating and could take almost 80 years to fix. So when you take your mind off of simple governing, the purpose of government, you start to get involved with all of these special interest things, which are the fact which we call the system. And the system is fueled by tax dollars and the fact that you have companies that are able to make money and pay back into the government. So we have to ask ourselves, is the system really broken, or is it just the people? Are these rules made to be broken? So this is why story number 2 it may rise up because of the fact that you're seeing it circulating in a lot of media circles. And then they have there's talk about bipartisan disapproval over Trump's administration housing program cuts. So there's even a big story on the website in the feed there's an article about the IRS attempting to about how they tried to take on the ultra wealthy in the past. And the article talks about what happened when they tried to do this. You see things like pushes for. That's why you're starting to see things like pushes for Trump's tax returns. So I think what you can get out of this whole story number 2, if you're an analyst and you're trying to find something that works, is the system fair? Is it fair for everybody? Has it been fair for minorities? Has it been fair for everybody? And that's what you'll get in the upcoming, as if this story gains any more steam, is the system fair for everybody? Do we blame the system, or do we blame the ultra wealthy for putting these rules in place? It's almost like saying, I take, I get to the top, and then I make the rules so I can stay at the top. That's the question in story number 2. If you want to contribute anyway, you're in the meeting. It'll be Brian West. If you want to help out, all you have to do is visit the website, www.method8inc.com, www.method8inc.com, where all you have to do is buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. I don't ask for much. Like I said, I put in work. I'm investing. I oftentimes have to invest my own money. I come from a minority community. Like I said, I don't complain, but if you want to help out, if you want to assist me in any way, like I said, I'm a for-profit company. You probably won't be a tax write-off, but it's like buying and sponsoring a program. All you have to do is visit the website. It doesn't take much. Buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. You may be looking for a book. You may be looking for something to read. You may just be looking for some stories to figure out what's going on in the world. It doesn't take much. Just be a part of it. Buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. Or you can stop by the business. I'm at 5648 Market Street. I'm in Boardman, Ohio. I sell stuff for people. Buy, trade, sell, fix ink cartridges, repair things. I try my best to be an asset to the community. So if you want to help out, all you have to do is visit www.method8inc.com. You can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or just sponsor a program. Now I go through 200, probably 250, probably more than that, stories every week for the benefit of the globe. I like to encourage myself, tell myself nice things in the mirror. I always try to be a positive influence on not only just myself. I like to keep myself clean. Like I said, I can get dirty, but I like to wash myself up in the morning and try to smell fresh. Not just for the ladies, but for the world. I can't smell, but I'm sure there's people who can smell me, and they may want to be blessed and be in my presence. And if that is the case, then I'm hoping I'm giving you what you need. But if you want to help out, method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. Like I said, I'm going to the moon, baby. And I'm not even spending no money. I'm not even going to the spacecraft. I'm going with my imagination. I'm taking you with me. Go on this journey with me in mediation. Let's get to story number 3. Who is right? This has been a question that has been asked for probably throughout all mankind. Who is right? If you haven't been keeping an eye on religious news or religious topics, then you may not know that there was a statue of the Virgin Mary that was beheaded in LA. You probably don't know that Farrakhan has been making claims that I would say claims, but there was a report that said he claims that he is Jesus, or he claims to be Jesus. A lot of people may not understand the rage of different sides or different preaching pulpits, but a lot of there's been tons of news about Farrakhan's rage against Jews. But the thing is, folks, is that there's a push. I mentioned this a few weeks ago about this push for truth in history. It's been going on for a long time. I even talked about last week about how there's some people involved with government right now who were big time activists back in the 60s, back when this nation was the normal thing, and the reality of the situation is there were some things going on in the past that a lot of people regret. And it's you when you look at some of these figures who are in power positions right now. You look at the president. You look at people like Farrakhan. These guys come from a day and time where there was a lot of racial violence, a lot of racial strife, a lot of supremacy, and this country is suffering constantly with hate crimes because of that. It doesn't just affect the United States; it affects the world. And at the end of the day, especially when you analyze, you look at the big picture, and you ask yourself, who is right? You know, is Jesus the picture that we see that Da Vinci drew? Are we all sinners damned for hell? Do we all have? Are we all sinful at birth? Are we all? It's just you. This stuff, like I said. It happens. It affects everybody. But right now, there's always, you will see this constantly. Conservative, either you see conservatives, liberals. Either you're going to see that, you're going to see rainbow movements. I mean, tons of stuff. You see, there's a story that surfaced about a Utah woman who even set 2 Mormon churches on fire, claiming that Satan lives. Satan worshippers, white power symbols found near fires at social justice centers. And these people, they get off on this stuff. You get it, you know. You look at these guys. They have tons of people following them, believing in their message, and just powerful brothers, strong brothers who probably been hitting the weights, and they get all excited and pumped up about this. And it happens generation after generation after generation. People get in the pulpit, claim it, and they love it, and they feel the excitement. Just you can say anything. You got women knocking down your door. You're the man. You're the and then all of these other groups, infidels. You see genocides. I was reading a book when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was raised in a church. I'm still Baptist Christian, and I was always very heavy in the church. It's just I still got the spark in me to read. I read the Bible all the time, just trying to stay up to speed. But what I've learned to do is I've learned that everybody gets something different from the message, and you either accept it, you surrender to it, or you don't. And some people take the context and put it in their own context. Some people fail to get the message. Some people don't get the message. I really never disputed any ministers. I just look at it as something that has to be done to keep things. I would say prophets, or if a prophet can give another prophet a word of the day, if a prophet smacks a man, and there's got to be a reason for that smack. So maybe Farrakhan has seen some things in his life for making these comments. Maybe he knows something. I mean, who knows? Yeah, sometimes I've heard ministers say that people like Michael Jackson is burning in hell. So that's what I'm saying. You get all these different ideas. And then you have people who are doing wrong, but they believe that they're doing right. It's just a lot of confusion. A lot of confusion. Nobody. You got tons of denominations about Jesus. Tons of denominations. Then you've got Egyptology talking about people saying that Christian is just a knockoff of Egyptology. These things are surfacing in the news because they're creating hate. They're creating hate crimes. Then you have Hitler's theology, believing that of the Aryan race, and that just superior to. I mean, the guy had well studied scientists behind him creating. I mean, then he got finance for his wars. People got blew up. So you look at this and you look at the day and time that we're in. It's a 2020. And you ask yourself, and then you look at the way people have been treating their bodies, the way the way men have become, and the feminization of life, and the doolies, and all of the flowers and candy cane, cotton candy that has been given down to children. I mean, you ask yourself in this, who is right? Who has the answer? Is Farrakhan really the Messiah? Is Donald Trump really the Messiah coming to save the Jews? And then you look at history. You read the Bible for what it says, and you look at the fact that Egypt is in Africa. You ask, even in the truth of are the real Jews in Israel, or are they Jews that are descendants of other Jews? Nobody. You only thing you can do is track the art. You ask the questions, and you create topics. And you put two and two together, but the fact is that all of this confusion, all of this hatred from years of oppression has created more animosity in people, more bitterness. It is creating more hatred that really, you look at all of those buildings that are blown up. You go to some of these countries, the children have been building nice, hard labor to build those buildings, destroyed by man. Bombs. Then you ask yourself, is this what man is? This is what we're here for? Are we here to blow each other up, destroy each other, to be corrupt in our own hearts, to not keep? So, are we here for that? You have people who are really, really fighting for the goodwill of people, and some of them are getting exhausted. But there's just a lot of people out there that just have a lot of misinformation. And that's why I say you get these classes of people that are separated, and some people have nothing to lose, and they take the deal. They sell their souls, and when they sell them, they start to realize, you get some of these people, you get all these secrets. I mean, nobody who is there some alien underground telling us? Who knows? Years ago, when I was in high school, people thought we didn't have all of the knowledge about the universe. There was probably, you look at the science book, you probably see a few planets. That was it. Or drawings. So that's what I'm saying. Things are changing, folks. And some of these guys come from that era where there was just, and they still feel those vibes. They still feel those feelings. And they still feel they have a purpose to do what their mentors and what their people tell them. And that's what you see. If I'm wrong, we wouldn't be having all these stories about people getting shot up, going to worship service and stuff. This is reality. Oh God, mediation is tough. Whew. I spent a lot of time on that story. Who's right? If you want to contribute anyway, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com. I'm not going to fight with you folks because I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to do. That's not what that's what the mediator's about. Giving you the chance to think, do your research, and be educated. Do your own reading. I'm not going to force feed you. If you want to be a holy roller, that's your choice. I'm there. I believe that God has put me on this planet to mediate. That's what I believe. Are you going to try to take that away from me? I'm a peaceful man. Peace is the way, folks. And I try not to hold too much hatred in my heart. When I see nonsense, I would like to go, jiggle it out of somebody, but they don't learn. I try to be wise, sentimental, not rough with the ladies. I try to be gentle. So if you want to contribute anyway, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, method80.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. Let's get to story number 4. We're about at past the 5 minutes past the halfway point. Story number 4: why refugees and asylum seekers are becoming more prevalent. There's all I'm going to say, folks, and is I began the show, if you just tuned in, I began the show talking about the gap between the wealthy, the poor, and the middle, the people in the middle. Folks, there are countries that are invaded with they're infested with drugs, all of this the dirt and the filth of mankind. Some people, they come to the conclusion that they have to migrate. They have to leave their country and go somewhere where it's safe. It's normal human behavior. Some of these people don't have a lot of resources. Some of them live in third world countries, and we're seeing it happening. And then you're seeing it happening. Some of these people cheat their way in the system. They use fake birth certificates, fake social security numbers, and it's very common among migrant families. There are some stories surfacing even about boats that have been carrying Haitian migrants that have been sinking in shark-infested waters. People have been dying. So you're seeing these stories surface, and there's even stories surfacing about that are starting to just pop up about how immigration bills are starting to stall in Congress because we are becoming overwhelmed. There's a little bit of confusion with story number 4 because there's some stories that are saying that there's not a lot going on at the border, and then you may see stories that are saying there's a surge in border activity. Then you may see the story about the president saying that we need a wall. Then you may hear stories from different people saying that it's a manufactured crisis. But the thing is that the Trump administration, what Trump has been saying is that he gives Mexico a 1-year warning to stop drugs, migrants, or he will tax cars and close the border. So you're starting to see. One thing I can say is that what's been keeping this story, the asylum and refugee stories alive, is the fact that you seem to have a president in office who doesn't have much empathy, but he seems to be bringing this topic to life, and he wants to build a border wall. Then you have the fact of what's going on in Venezuela, and the fact that you have a lot of drug cartel that have been using the border and just the borders period to get drugs into the country. There's a story that surfaced about a Mexican cartel gunman that kidnapped and beat 11 police officers. So you're seeing, and then so the president is making these stories and getting these things, keeping them in the headlines. And as a thinker and somebody who may have children, because now they're talking about vaccinations and the fact that people are coming in and they're unvaccinated, they're bringing diseases and they're bringing things across the border. And being a powerful nation, you have a lot of allies, but there's a lot of people that are plotting against you. And so people can use these tactics, especially when you don't have borders. If you look throughout all of history, you look throughout the Crusade, you look throughout the ancient castles, how they would protect, they would always have a barrier of entrance. That was a defense mechanism. So you're seeing the fact, even when you look at how this country, to put it simple, a nation or country with open borders is fragile because if you don't understand trade, I hope forgive me if you feel like I'm talking down or in any type of light, but I'm trying. For just sometimes people are brand new to radio. If you know about it, then it is what it is. But sometimes people don't understand this topic, and I see it a lot. I talk to some people, and they don't understand just the lack of sympathy for what we're seeing and why things are happening the way they happen. Even if you are well informed and you do understand, then I encourage you to try to approach this topic like this, because people who are seeking asylum, they want a better life, and they have nothing to lose. So that's why I think there has to be empathy on this topic, because it's because like this nation was built off of immigrants. Everybody came over here. Some came over by force. So you have to, whenever you approach these topics, I always try to approach them from just having some sympathy for what's actually really going on. I try not to be ignorant towards the topic, because there's been people who have died, people who continue to die on a day-to-day basis because of this. And that's why when you look at this story and you look at how it's staying in the news, this is a serious topic. And that people, and until the circumstances in countries like Venezuela, Mexico, or these countries that have citizens, that these citizens live, they have to leave the comfort of their own home. It's no different from a hurricane hitting one place and then people having to migrate to another state. This is a real situation. These people, they come to this country, they take jobs, they take wealth away. So this is a serious topic, and I see it gaining more attention because of the fact that this administration just doesn't seem to be budging when it comes to immigration issues. You even have it. They're talking about the journalists, and the journalists are just very discouraged. Venezuela is a very oil-rich country, and they're just saying that it's in complete chaos. They don't have any electricity. So this story is still, it's been hanging on, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Then you talk about the children that have been involved in this crisis. Story number 4: why refugees and asylum seekers are becoming more prevalent. This story is probably going to continue to get more in depth, and I don't see it wearing itself out because of just the circumstances that a lot of economies are in. You could even look at Puerto Rico. These citizens are pleading for help. They're pleading for aid, and it's when you cut off the hands of the provider, people who have to start doing things for themselves, it can, or they don't have the resources, they don't have the technology, they don't have this is a very serious topic, folks, and this is why it's always important that you become an asset to your community, to your people around you, because at the beginning of the show, when you have to sell your children to be able to live, I'm telling you, this is a serious topic. So story number 4, I see actually gaining some steam because of the fact that this president is not budging on his stance against immigration. If you want to contribute anyway, you're the media. It'll be Brian West, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, Method80.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. It is my duty as a mediator to go through the top 8 headlines, developing news stories that made it throughout the week. So if you want to help out, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, Method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. Story number 5: would reparations for descendants of slaves actually help or work? This story has been creeping in. I mentioned something about reparations years ago when I had a TV show, but it's been in and out of the headlines. I've heard a lot of opinions on this topic, and me being an African American myself, I could not. The question is, what effect would this have on an already struggling African American community? And this is, it's a very sensitive topic, but for somehow it has crept its way into the headlines. And they're actually Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandria. I don't know what strategy is behind this, folks. You're looking at years and years ago. Slavery was actually in this country, and it was actually law. And so, where would the reparations come from? What forms they would be in? These stories that made it. When you look at the state of I was talking to Gary, one of the board ops in here. I was just talking to him about just the inner city, some of the things that I'd seen growing up, and how I actually got into radio when I was younger, why I was so inspired by it. I was so hungry to understand why my community was the way it was. If you've never been in smaller inner city communities, you see some things as a child, and you have questions. And the sad part about it is some of these people in the inner city think that it's because of the rich. Some people blame just different. We have different reasoning or different, but there's even like a creed, a code of conduct that people who are raised in these inner cities, they start to live by, and it becomes a process throughout generations. And these generations start to develop this code of conduct of how they mingle and how they feel they're going to be the savior of the ghettos, and how they're going to get rap deals, basketball deals, NFL deals, and they're going to come back and they're going to save the ghettos. But slavery, reparations, the scary part is how we handle our money. And that's what a lot of intellects are getting into is, do people, if you were to receive reparations, this, back then they probably would have, it's just, what would happen? Would it balance things out? Some people, especially people who have been privileged, who have had ancestors leave them money. So this topic of reparations is starting to circulate, and who knows how long this story is going to stay alive. But it has a lot to do with the founding of this nation and the fact that about fairness and I don't think equality I think equality is a good term, but I think fairness is a better term when people are using the dialect and the language to describe what these stories that you see surfacing mean. And the fact is like I said, when you look at the president, when he's talking about, is it fair for people to come across the border illegally, or is it fair for people to do it the proper way? So is it fair that African Americans receive reparations, or is it, so this is why these stories are very, and they're hitting a lot of touchy points. Let's get to story number 6. If you want to contribute, you're in the meeting with me, Brian West, where I can do nothing more with my life but mediate, stay in the middle, and try to keep people informed. I'm going through the top 8 headlines, developing news stories every week, exhausting myself, falling on the floor, just complete knowledge, just story after story, just for you. So if you want to help out, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, method80.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. Some people hit the lottery, they go buy tons of assets, and they end up losing those assets. Some people hit the lottery and they start investing, putting people to work, investing in new ideas and jobs. But the thing is that some people do not get that fortune. Some people live this life suffering, and that's mainly if I did anything researching this week, that's what I got out of most of these top 8 stories. So let's get to story number 6. We're almost at the top story. Story number 6. Ever notice people becoming fascinated with natural remedies, folks? There's a study that found that 1 in 5 people are eating themselves to death. There's also a push to raise the smoking age to 21. It's been catching some fire by states. And there was a rapper, Nipsey Hussle. There was a conspiracy floating around that the reason why he was killed was because of his connections with a doctor. Well, doctor. His name is Dr. Sebi, but there's just a lot of things surfacing around these stories about people and nutrition, but it caught my attention, and it's been surfacing quite a bit, because no matter what, we all are going to die. But some of us create this fascination that we have to take supplements to actually keep ourselves healthy. But is it true? And the stories like this are very interesting, because we have to ask ourselves, are we really what we eat? And is there really this doctor, he was pretty much like a self-proclaimed doctor. He practiced herbal medicine, and he created a following and he got some attention of some high level of celebrities, and some of them sued. But this a rapper had passed away. Was creating a documentary, and this story caught my attention because I was amazed at how many people were just fascinated or drawn, or who have been drawn into this health movement. And this, when you the question we have to ask ourselves. I once heard this joke when I was a kid. Well, I wasn't a kid. I was probably about 19, still young, about 21. And the joke is doctors killed Jesus. And the reason why the joke was supposed to be funny is the fact that the reason why a doctor would kill Jesus is because Jesus was putting them out of business. So when you look at these metaphors and you ask yourself these questions, and you ask yourself, is this the new state of healthcare? Is healthcare a business like anything else? And then you look at some of these inventions, like they're talking about how nicotine induced these new cigarettes, vaping, could be causing seizures. And I talked to you about air pollution, how they talking about it's doing to our body. There was even some stories that surfaced about binge drinking and what it does to teenagers' brains. There's even stories surfacing about the beef industry, and people are bucking up because of the widespread use of antibiotics. They even talk about genetically modified foods. So people are starting to watch what they eat, and these stories are starting to surface. There was a study that found in 17 countries that at least 1 in 5 healthcare facilities have no clean water service. So you have to ask yourself, and if you're into this stuff, you have to ask yourself: is what we're eating, is it really affecting us? There was a story about an E. coli outbreak that has sickened nearly 50 people in Kentucky. Some people are very, very concerned about their health, and they have to go to work, so they start practicing all these remedies, and they want to stay healthy. Some people use a lot of cleansing, like we're getting around the Easter holiday. Some people fast; they don't eat meat, and they practice this cleansing. So you have to ask yourself: is this the real way that humans are supposed to eat? Is there actually really are we really supposed to be eating the things that we eat? So you look at these stories and they surface, and it's a very interesting topic. Even the Trump administration is being sued by attorney generals because of the food nutrition rollbacks, school nutrition rollbacks. So this is an interesting. Even when you look at when he was feeding the football players, he gave them fast food. So people have been. There's a lot of truth and ups and downs in these stories, but you have to ask yourself: is will you live long off of a fast food diet? I mean, some people live to their 80s. Some doctors say it's genetic. But these stories are really, really interesting stories. But this story crept its way up because it created a big buzz online with this. I mean, rest in peace for to the actor. I hear he was a big community activist. But this story created a lot of attention online because of its connections. If you want to contribute anyway, you're in the media with me, Brian West. I'm at the top 2 stories of the day. If you're just tuning in, you're in the media, where it is my supreme duty to give you the top 8 headlines developing news stories that made it out the week. If you want to contribute anyway, all you have to do is visit METHOD, the number 8, INC.com, method80.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. Let's get to the top 2 stories that made it in. Story number 7. Culture, intellect, and conspiracies. Who do you believe? A Catholic cardinal he basically said that migration is a new form of slavery. This show that we've had this time to discuss, where I've been by myself in the studio, I've talked to you about things, and sometimes you look at people like Alex Jones, who they call the Godfather of conspiracies. People develop these ideas and they develop these analogies, and they start. You look at this administration, who has been talking about fake news, and you look at the attack on the media, and then you look at the fact of people who start to believe in things like they call these things conspiracies, these ideas, these people who study trends, they study activity, they study the way people behave, and they start to create a lot of people who follow them, and they start to believe in what they say. They start to read. They start to buy their products. And the fact is that some of these people are intellectual. Some of them run schemes. Some of them run operations. But the thing is that it's become such a big culture in America. You can go on YouTube right now. You can go online and you could find a lot of these stories that you could believe. There's stories I found talking about that some people were men and some people were women who proclaimed themselves to be men and women in the public. I've heard stories about the Obamas. I mean, you look at these stories and you ask yourself, is this real? Is it real? Some people believe this stuff. And this is why the story surfaced at the top, because conspiracies are a big thing in the United States culture. And they cause a lot of hate crimes, a lot of people's beliefs, a lot of people's ideologies. And they can create so much confusion because of the fact that some of it could be true and some of it could be fake. Nobody really knows unless you do your own research. There was a story that surfaced about how Georgia becomes the latest state to push for Bible literacy. See, they're starting to realize that people who read more or who study a little bit more end up becoming a little bit more informed and less likely to fall into the web of confusion. Like I said, this whole show is based off of how and who or how people could convince you, or what they would do to get you to believe in something, or even if or what you would do to support yourself. This is a reality. That's story number 7. If you want to contribute anyway, we're at the top story that made it in. Real quick, we about 4 minutes left of the show. If you want to contribute, all you have to do is visit www.method.inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. A lot to cover today. If you want to be a part, all you have to do is visit the website, method.inc.com. Buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or just sponsor a program. Story number 8. And all of this discussion that we got out today's show is in story number 8. Children in the new age and why we should be concerned. In all of this, children are getting caught in the middle of all of this adult behavior. There was a woman who was filmed. She was beating a child at a nursery home. Children have been used for sympathy pawns. Children are highly involved in the border crisis. There have been kindergarten teachers who have been detained after allegedly poisoning children. Children are involved in a lot. Parents, when parents are suffering from alcohol addiction, or there's domestic violence going on in the home. There's so many things there's even bills that are trying to be pushed that so employees can bring their babies to work because of the fact that they're losing trust in the babysitters. In all of this, when you see suffering between rich, poor, middle class, children are in the middle. If you are a religious person, like I said, I was raised Baptist, I was raised Christian. I believe in the sanctity of life. Children are being aborted. It's just tough. It really is. But there's even a 5th grader who was fatally injured at school, and her dad was never told about the injury. And all of this confusion, everything we are doing as adults, I'm telling you, children are watching. Children, if you get anything out of today's show, I don't care about the politics. I don't care about anything. Everything that we are doing, it is amazing. If you're a believer in Christ even said, do not turn the children away from God. And we may be seeing that in this time frame, and that may be why we're headed in the direction that we are. Some people, but one good story I did get out of all the news I looked at was that a nurse adopted a girl who had no visitors while in the hospital. Folks, 2 local stories that made it in. There's been permits that 2 they expired permits to drill in Brookfield injection wells were expired. Hubbard approves a deal to convert to LED lighting. Those are the top 8 stories that made it to the media this week, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. We had a good time. We talked about some very serious things that are going on. If I did anything, I hope I kept you informed throughout today's show. If you want to contribute in any way, like I said, all you have to do is visit the website, method.inc.com, methodinc.com. A lot going on in the world, a lot of innocent bystanders out there. a lot of people affected by what's happening in the news, and there's a lot of people starting to be involved. Some things are touching a lot of people's hearts, so we're still a lot of activists. But the true spirit of not only America but the world is really starting to take notice, and we're starting to see it. Where there is light, there's darkness. Where there's darkness, there's always light. Well, thanks so much for tuning to the media this week, folks, and I wish you the best. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to the media with me, Brian West. I am out of here. I'm going to watch a movie. Have a good day. I'm out. Gone. Bye.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The media is